House. You're listening to the Para House Entertainment Network. Come join us as we take you deep into the fire, to the paranormal realms of hauntings, UFOs, ETs, alien abductions, strange creatures, and the vastness of universal consciousness, as we continue to seek what is not supposed to exist, as we search for the truth that only comes from going into the fire. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Into the Fire. How's everybody doing tonight? We are sitting here waiting for a wonderful show we're going to have prepared for you tonight. We have Kevin Briggs on, a good friend and also a compadre of mine in another show called The Conspiracy Clan, which we've had to stop since we got booted off of Facebook. So we'll try to be gentle about that, but we are working on bringing that back. I wanted to tell everybody who is watching us on YouTube right now, the chat on YouTube is not being monitored. So if you would roll over to our Facebook page, which is Facebook Into the Far radioshow.com, and you can join the chat room there, and we will be monitoring that live here. We'll be working on how to get that done at a later in the next two shows and how we'll monitor that. I want to introduce our wonderful guest hosts, Billy and Tanya. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing good. How are you doing?
Oh, I am just happy as a lark. Can you smell the crap?
Well, I'm excited about tonight.
Oh, I am very excited about tonight. Kevin is a special individual, a great author, and we're going to talk about some of his books and all that good stuff. So I guess I better bring up a bio for him, and we'll bring him in. Anything you want to touch on before we do that?
Let's get right into it.
Yeah.
Sounds like a deal. I'm ready. Let's go. Kevin Briggs is an author that specializes in consciousness and in the connections to ET UFOs. He recently published his book titled Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey, and it covers 57 years of his experience of ET contact and UFO connections. Kevin speaks to many groups of UFO and ET enthusiasts, and they are always eager to hear of his interactions, and he has always received a warm reception. Kevin has written articles which have been published in Truth magazine. His published book is also mentioned in the Psychic News in the UK and their editor's Goodreads section. He has also written an article about ET experiences, which has been published in the New York Observatory magazine. Kevin has also appeared on local radio stations and recently filmed a TV show, Unlocking Your Limitless Life, hosted by Susan Shatzer, produced by Robin C. Adams. Kevin is also a keynote speaker in Miami at the Free Consciousness and Contact Experiencer Conference, hosted by the late Edgar Mitchell Foundation in research into extraterrestrial and extraordinary experiences. Kevin is a speaker at Consciousness and Contact Conferences held in July 2019 in the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Kevin is also a guest on the Karen Swain Show, from Australia, and also Kevin Moore's show in the UK. Kevin has also appeared on Melissa Kennedy's TV show, The UFO Woman, filmed locally in Florida, and Kevin is a co-author with Melisa Kennedy and Edgar Mitchell on a recent published book called Tap into the Universal Understanding of Cosmic Energy and Consciousness. We are so glad to have Kevin here tonight, not to mention that he is a terrific friend. He is the co-host and host of The Conspiracy Clan with his brother Mike Briggs and myself. And it is such a pleasure to bring Kevin in tonight and talk about the ET connections. So, Kevin, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Bobby, I'm fine. Hi, Billy. Hi, Tonya. How are you?
Doing great.
Doing
Thank you,
great.
Kevin.
Good. Well, thank you for inviting me on your show. It's amazing to see you again, Barry. And, I always enjoy talking about my experiences. But without people like you, I can't get the information out there. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, you're more than welcome, my friend. And one of the
Excited
things
to have
that we
you.
like to do is be able to talk about the things that are very important. And, as we move forward in our days and the problems and the times that we're in now, the things that we'll talk about tonight play a big part in it, don't they?
Oh, I'm sure. I've been speaking out now for about 3 years, probably, but it's now coming to a head in relation to the ET contact. And it's come at the right time as well, because our societies are collapsing globally. Things are closing down. So it's really the right time. And I'm speaking with many other experiences now and people working towards this new reality that we're trying to co-create using thought and consciousness. And that's really what we're doing. And we're going to co-create that with the ETs, with shared consciousness. So we've got to that level, and they brought me up to this level where I have an understanding of consciousness. I have direct contact with a group of ETs, but I'm meeting many others that have direct contact with their own groups. So once we bring them all together, then we have a voice. And not only do we have a voice from the citizens of Earth, but we have a voice from the ET extraterrestrials as well. So exciting times ahead. My ETs do tell me that we're moving towards the golden years for humanity, which will include new released technologies that we have that's being kept hidden from us, and then shared technologies from the ETs. So exciting times ahead. So yeah, but my story is if you haven't heard it before, I don't think it's unique, but it's my personal story in relation to contact with the ETs, and it started when I was about 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know how I am. What we've done most of our lives, and we're investigators, and we have been doing the UFO field. I deal with abductions, and I'm an abductee myself. We also do a lot in the paranormal. We all believe it's intertwined in a lot of ways. And as we've gone through, and I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of abductees, many of them who are out on the circuit now speaking, that I have helped out to get that way. It's been a pleasure to do that. And I know that your story ties in very much about what's going on today, and some of the things that even possibly Billy and Tonya and I go through, because it involves that spiritual consciousness and it's your personal journey, but it also is a personal journey for all of us, because we're all doing it. Some of us are different in certain ways, as you mentioned, and we're looking forward to hearing that story that happened to you while you're at 3 years old, but also taking it more to the side of what's happening currently and continuing what you think is going to happen. So take it away, my friend.
Okay, well, I agree with you there, Barry. I think it does fit in very well with your show in relation to the paranormal, because if instead of using the word paranormal, you use consciousness and shared consciousness and different levels of consciousness, then it brings all the work that you've been doing for many years out of interest, and you have your own contact. within that paranormal world.
Right.
But that's all part of it, really. It has its place within that conscious reality where we live. So if I start with my first understanding, I was 3 years old. My mother engaged a photographer to take some photographs for the family album. The photographer arrived, and I had a wash and my hair combed, and he lifted me up onto the dining room oak table for a higher position for the photographs. And from that position, I looked around the room, and bear in mind I was 3 years old, I realized I was conscious again in a physical body at 3 years old. And that's my first recollection. And I told my wife that story when I met her, and she said, Kevin, 3-year-olds don't think about consciousness, and 3-year-olds don't use those words. Well, I did. And that was my first. I think really most of us have that. As children, we remember when we come back into a physical body, but then after 5 or 6 years, those memories disappear. Well, mine continued because of the help that I had from my ET guides. And so
that's excellent.
Nothing happened after 3, but when I was 8 years old, I was taking a bath at home. And as a child, I was always sensitive to other vibrational frequencies that were in the room. A bit like with ghosts and paranormal things, I'm sure you can detect them. Either you can detect them physically yourself or through influence and things. Well, I was open to these vibrational frequencies as a child. And while I was taking the bath, I felt a change in the vibrational frequency within the room. I looked to my right, and 2 beings appeared. They were slightly elevated off the floor. They were both a male and a female, both very attractive, both had long shoulder-length hair, deep blue eyes, and a tight-fitting blue jumpsuit. They were talking to one another about me, not to me. They were talking telepathically to one another, but I could understand what they were saying. And I remember the conversation to this day. D, that was the female, said to Art, who was the male, "Is this the boy?" And he said, "Yes, this is the boy." And then she said, "Well, are you sure? Look at him, he's small, he's uneducated, and he's frightened by our presence." And she was correct. I was terrified, absolutely terrified. Yes. And he replied, "Yes, this is a boy. I will guide him. I will teach him." There was some other conversation within that, and then they left. As I was terrified, I didn't get out of the bath. The water went cold. I was shivering in the bath. And my mother came in to see why I was still in the bathtub. And I said there were 2 beings that came into the bathroom. And I didn't get out of the bath. I was frightened. She said, "Don't be silly. It's just your imagination." She dried me off, and then we continued with the evening. It wasn't my imagination, and I've had contact with Orton D all my life, and I'm now 67. My contact continues to this day. So that was really the second part of this journey, really. Still a young child at that time. And then the next stage, I would be 9, just a year later. And I'd had some friends around at our home. I remember it was a Sunday, and we were playing games and things. And it was time for them to go home for their evening meal. So I showed them out the back door. And when I turned back into the house, I could feel a presence in the room, that vibrational frequency again. And so I looked in the living room. I couldn't find anything. I went upstairs, the bedrooms, back in the kitchen. Then I went back into the living room where the vibrational frequency was the strongest. And I was drawn towards the window, and I looked behind the drapes or the curtain, and there was an orb there, an orange orb. It was about 4 to 6 inches across. It was vibrating and moving up and down slightly. It was orangey yellow in color. There was no communication for it, but it was there. And I thought, well, I was a bit perturbed because I thought I might have invited it into the house for some reason. And if my mother saw it, I would get myself into trouble. So I thought, well, I'll go to bed this evening, and I'm sure when I get up in the morning, it will have gone. So I went to bed, got up in the morning, and it was still there. So, and then I went off to school. I came back and I thought, about 4 o'clock. I'm sure it'll have gone now. I opened the back door, and as soon as I opened the door, I knew it was there. Anyway, to cut a long story short, it stayed until the Friday. I came home from school at 4 o'clock on the Friday. I opened the door, and I could tell that it had left. I went to the curtain, looked behind the drapes, the curtains, and it wasn't there. So it had gone. So I was quite relieved about that. But and there was no communication that I was aware of for that whole week. But what happened after that, my psychic abilities had been enhanced no end, even to the fact where I could now travel outside of my body and separate my conscious energy from my physical. So that would now be like the third encounter, and I'm now 9.
Mm-hmm. That is fascinating.
I think I lost
when
the
you
signal
talk
there.
about, can you? We still have you on here, so if you can hear us,
Okay.
can you?
Okay, to continue then.
Oh yeah, it's great to continue, and it's kind of like I love that when we speak of that term of consciousness and your consciousness leaving your body. So many people, it's the same thing as astral projection. And that's what we call it in our field. Do you agree with that? It would be like astral projection, where you're actually leaving your body, your vessel is still there, and you are out roaming around doing things outside of that, and come back to that body. Correct? Maybe I lost him.
He froze up.
Yep.
We'll give him a second.
Yeah, we'll give him a second here, but yeah, folks, this is just a great story. He's gone now, and he'll get right back in. This is the kind of stuff that happens when we do these kind of shows. As you all know, we've talked about it many times before, especially in the days we are ahead of us and the things that go on. Not to sound paranoid or anything else, but I think we all know that this stuff does happen, and they don't like us to talk about it very much. While we're waiting for him to get back in.
Oh, Laura says the English humor is very dry.
Oh, yes.
Him
Yes.
stepping out like that.
Yes, that's true. We'll say hello to Laughlin. How you been, buddy? And what else in here? We've got Tawana Bears in here. Sherry, how are you tonight? McLaren PI is in here. We've got a great show. And hey, Eric Mitchell, how are you doing? Frankie Lynn's also in here. It's great to have you all in here tonight. This is going to be a special show if we can get Kevin back tonight. Eric, I got to mention it to you when he's just started off. Of course, what did we hear that stayed in his room for a period of time? An orange orb. And we know how those things have been coming more and more. So interesting night. So, folks, I hope you enjoy it. We will do everything in our power to get back Kevin in the meantime. And I think he's coming in right now. Before we bring him in, I will say that, look, we've missed everybody a lot on Facebook and so forth. But if you're looking for me, you can try me. I sent a lot of people emails today. Laughlin, I didn't have your email, so I didn't send it to you. But Billy will send you how to get in contact with me and everything else.
Anybody that needs to get in touch with Barry, if you don't have his personal contact information, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will pass the message along.
Super. I appreciate that, brother. And Kevin, good to have you back, man. We're right in the middle of the story, right with the orange orbs going around and the good stuff. And I
I lost my internet connection. That never happens.
Well,
they're watching.
we were just talking about a minute ago. When you do this kind of shows on the radio, and when Eric Mitchell and I used to host the radio show, we knew the ones that were going to be like, oh, well, we'll be lucky to get this one off. And this is one of those.
I know I was on last year sometime or year before, I was on Whitley Strieber's radio show. And well, we had so much trouble, so much interference. And he says, I never have this experience of this amount of interruptions. But very often when I interview experiences, we do get that. So I'm not quite sure whether it's anything to do with who we are or what, but it's strange that it should happen now. I've been on my computer all day. I've had no issues, not lots of signals. Then I'm talking to you. I blame you, Barry. That's right. I blame you.
That's it. That's it. So is everybody else. I talked to people, when I talked to something else, and it's been it's been a strange night because from yesterday to from last night, talking to another abductee and two of them exactly to be truthful, and then today corresponding with some, and boy, it's been weird, and so it goes. So let's continue on with this excellent story because it's so important to
okay then. So after the orbit left, I was then able to, and I wasn't able to do this before. I didn't do this before. Was able to separate my conscious energy from my physical, and I would just use it locally to go and visit my grandparents on a Sunday. At the weekend, they live 70 miles away in Liverpool, and each Sunday I would relax, open my mind, and travel over there. And just as pure conscious energy, I would go into their home and sit upstairs. They had a dressing room in the master bedroom upstairs, and I would sit there in a chair and look down the floor. And the floor was opaque. I could see through the floor, and I would see my grandmother usually in the kitchen cooking on a Sunday, and my grandfather either reading the newspaper or watching TV. So, and I would do that every weekend, really. And I didn't think anything of it as a 9-year-old. At that time, I thought everybody did this. It's just part of who we are. But as a 9-year-old, I wondered what would they see if they came upstairs and saw me here. I don't know the answer to that. What they would have seen would have been a conscious energy orb, which was orange, yellow in color, slightly vibrating, 4 to 6 inches across. That was my pure conscious energy orb. And the orb that I had in the home behind the drapes, behind the curtain, was Ort's conscious energy orb. So whether he activated some of my DNA, I'm not quite sure. But from that point, I was able to travel outside of my body. And it wasn't until I got to about 16 or 17. And I thought, nobody talks about this. I asked my friends in a third party, by the way, to say, I have a friend of mine who travels outside of his body. Because I'd got my suspicions by then because I was talking about it, and I couldn't find anybody. So I accepted it, and later on I asked Ort about it. And all I used to use it for at that moment in time was to go and visit my grandparents, or a simple thing as I got older. If I wanted to go around and see a friend, we didn't have cell phones then, I would just leave my body, send my consciousness over to where he lived before I walked the 20 minutes to see if he was in. There's no point in walking there if he's not at home. So I always used to go over first and have a look. If he was there, then I would walk. And the same with, I used to get the bus to work in the morning. I had a choice of 2 bus stops. One I went north and one I went south a bit. So I used to fly up to the top one, see how long the line was, and go down to the bottom one and see how long the line was. And then I would choose the shortest line. Just simple things like that. But to me, it was just normal, So, but the next major encounter, I was 14. Mm-hmm. And I had a paper round when I was 14 for some pocket money. And every time I left the home, a UFO would appear directly above the house. And then as I set off, a second UFO would always appear from another direction, join the first one, and then they would follow me around the paper round. Then when I finished the paper round, one would usually go back in the direction it had come from, and the other one would go straight up into space. And that was a regular occurrence. And while that happened, I was always aware that when I was delivering the papers, there was some other vibrational frequencies behind the wall, behind the hedge. I knew there was somebody there, a bit like in the bathroom. So on one occasion, I plucked up courage and said, I know you're there. Can you come and show yourself? And these 2 small beings appeared from behind the hedge. and they were two small grey beings, about the same height as me, as a 14-year-old child. I wasn't frightened by them at all. And I said, what did they want? And they said that there was a group of people that wanted to meet with me. I said, well, I've got to finish my paper round, and then I've got to go to school. I can't be late for school. And they said, well, you can finish your paper round, and then we can go and meet these people, and we'll have you back in time for your school, so you won't be late. I said, okay. So I agreed. I said, okay. So I finished my round. So then I went with the two small greys, and I was taken up to a mothership. Now, I only realized it was a mothership because of the size of it. It was huge. We pulled into this hangar, and in the hangar, I don't know how many craft there were. There were lots of crafts, all different sizes, all different shapes. So my opinion was it was a large mothership. So we started walking towards the main entrance, and as we were doing that, there was a small grey working on a craft, and he waved at me. So I, being polite, I smiled and I waved back. I didn't know him. I've never seen him before, but I've met him since. I know his name, and anyway, I was led into this big amphitheater. The amphitheater was full of people, and at the front of the amphitheater there was a desk, and on that desk there were 8 people. 2 of the people were Orton D that had materialized in my bathroom when I was 8. The other 6 were other beings that I hadn't met. And I was taken down to the front. And as a 14-year-old boy, I thought I was being introduced as a human boy. They wanted to have a look at one, see what we look like.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. I know that now. And all the people that were there, I thought they were just the audience to watch. But really what it was a council. It was a group of extraterrestrials. And all those in the amphitheater were the delegates, and the ones at the front were the actual Council of 8. And as I say, there was Orton D, who looked like human beings. There was Anna. She was like a bluebird type being. There was Zark. He's a small grey. He's a mathematician and engineer. I got to know him quite well. Ra, he was the lead counsel. He was Anunnaki, and he was very old. And then there was Tag. He was a tall grey. He was responsible for the security and things. And then Chica, he was a bit scary because he was like a big grasshopper. He was a mantis. And I know I felt a bit apprehensive then. And then the last one will be Orla, and she was a tall white. So that was the group. So I was introduced to each one of them, and after pleasantries, then they said, right, we'll take you back home. They took me back to within about 500 yards of where I lived, and then I walked round into my home. And then I got to school in time for 9 o'clock, so I wasn't late. So that was the first introduction to the what I refer to them as the Council of 8. And I've been in contact with all 8 ever since, and they've guided me and taught me about many things. But the majority of things they've taught me about is one of consciousness, shared consciousness, how we all share, all the living beings, the living species, the plants, the trees, the animals, our globe itself is conscious, it's alive. And that's really the thread of the education that they've given me. So
that is a great thing, and that's a great thing to let other people know, because that expands everyone, and that's the key to our success in the future, to know that we are one with everything, and we are one with all. I mean, every one of us is all together one, and it is very important. And continue, please. I just love it. I'm just following you right along. I've got a lot of stuff to talk to you about later.
Yeah.
I think that you are totally correct there. But it will change our understanding as who we are as a species. And if we are going to move forward to join these higher dimensional beings, galactics, whatever you want to call them, then we have to learn this. We have to come up to their knowledge and understanding of consciousness itself, so we can interact. So we have to change the way that we treat our animals, our plants, our insects, other people on the planet. So, and then we've got to spread that out to interact with the intergalactic beings, the different groups and councils, and there were many. So we have a lot to learn, and I'm just here, I think, just to assist with that. But my next encounter would be, let me think now then. I mentioned that I was trying to find out more information, and I wasn't able to. So I lived in a small apartment in Leeds at the time. And I don't know the exact date, but I was about 17 or 18 years old. And I went to bed one evening, and I thought, well, there's much more to this than I know. So I'll ask Ort, one of the beings. So I went to bed, I relaxed, I actually held out my hand, and I asked him I said, I know there's much more to this than meets the eye. Can you give me some more information? And he came and took hold of my hand. And I left my physical body, bearing in mind I'm used to doing that.
Uh-huh.
I've just seen the dog.
Pug love.
He's so cute.
He was thinking no for an answer.
So I'm used to leaving my body and traveling outside of it, but not with someone else. And all we did, he took hold of my hand, I left my body, I looked down, I could see my body asleep, and we went out through the window, flew around the subdivision, came back into the window, I could see my body asleep, and then went back into my body. I woke up the following morning thinking that was cool. I wasn't sure whether it was a dream, I was sleepwalking, or what it was. So I thought I would try the same thing the second night. So I did the same thing the second night, relaxed, I opened my body, I held my hand up and asked Ot to come and show me some more. He came, he took hold of my hand, I left my body, I looked down, I could see it fast asleep. We went out through the window, only this time we went down into Leeds city centre, and I flew around the university where I worked as a technician at the time. Then I recognised some other buildings, the hospital, the town hall, and then we came back into my body through the window again. And I was a little bit perturbed about coming in through the window or out the window because I was 3 stories up, and I wasn't certain whether I was dreaming, sleepwalking yet. So I thought, I'll do this again, but I'm going to ask him if we can go out through the roof because I'm not happy going out through the window. So the third night, I tried it again, and he came, he took hold of my hand. I looked down, saw my body, and I said, look, I don't really want to go out the window. Can we go out through the roof? Because I'm not 100% convinced I'm not sleepwalking, and I'm 3 stories up, so I don't want to be climbing out the window and waking up in hospital. So we went out through the roof, and then we travelled further. And then that continued for quite a while, and got very comfortable with it. And then on one occasion, Ort came to see me, and he said, Kevin, I'm going to take you somewhere special tonight. Are you prepared to come with me? I said, oh, yes, I'm quite happy to go anywhere you want to go. So he took hold of my hand. We went out through the roof, and then we continued to go up and up and up and up. And I could see the earth getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then we went into a higher dimension. And I describe it as taking a right-hand turn. We took that turn, and there was a line of people there, 30 people, all lined up, all stood up. And in front of the line was my deceased father. I'd never seen him standing because he was always in a wheelchair from when I was born. And he was 6 foot tall, and he beaming smile on his face, opened his arms, and the feeling of love that was emanating from this group of 30 people was just tremendous. Anyway, my father greeted me and said, right, Kevin, I'm going to introduce you to 30 members of your family going back over 300 years.
Wow.
So we started out, got introduced to each one. I could see their last physical incarnation. But what was different was when I got halfway down the line to about the 15th person, instead of seeing a physical, I saw a conscious energy orb. It was as described before, orangey yellow in colour, slightly vibrating. I could still communicate with them telepathically, and they would show me their last incarnation. And I went down the line, introduced them all, then I came back, and then time was up, and Ort said, right, we'll have to leave now. So we left, I went back down to the earth. I saw the earth getting larger and larger, saw my house, went into the roof. I was still fast asleep, oblivious to what's going on, and then I went back into my body. I woke up in the morning and thinking, that was really cool. I like that, that was good. So we did that several times with Ort, and I went to visit them, and but I got so good at it and comfortable with it and confident. I didn't need to go with Art. I could go on my own. So I went on a regular basis to visit them. And every time I went, that feeling of love was just tremendous. But they didn't want me to leave. They wanted me to stay with them. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't stay. I've got a physical down there. I'm enjoying my physical. I know there's a lot of things I want to do. So I left. And then a couple of days later, I think, well, I don't think I'll go back and see them again. I know that they're there, but I'll have to go and tell them that I'm not coming back. So that evening, I relaxed. I opened my mind and I went up to see them. Again, that tremendous feeling of love that emanated from them. And I said, look, I won't be coming back to visit again. But I know you're here when my physical dies, and I will meet you again. And I left and I never went back. But I'd been visiting by that time over a 2-year period. So it just shows the different levels of consciousness where life exists. They're living at that level without a physical, and I'm down here at this lower level, third dimensional level, with a physical, with my consciousness inside the physical. So so that would be, what to say, 17, 18 then. So progressing along the line of consciousness. Does that make sense to you? Does it?
It makes so much sense. I don't know how our audience is seeing it or anything, and if you got questions, but it makes perfect sense to us, and I can see the smiles on Billy and Tanya, so I know that they get it also.
Oh yeah.
Because it is one of these things, and consciousness, and we live many of lives in many of past things, and I'm sure you'll get into that as you do, but. It's like the thing you're talking about, going through a window, going through a door, anything else, and it is we're totally capable of doing that because of that conscious being able to manipulate that type of stuff. I gotta later on. Excuse me.
Okay, well,
yes, go ahead.
I just had general interactions then with if I wanted something, I would ask. And I was getting on with my life. I was changing jobs, changing careers, meeting my wife and things like that. So my life was just going along nicely, different directions and things. And if I need any assistance or anything with anything, I would ask them and they would help and assist me. But the next major interaction was probably, as I said, I worked as a technician at the University of Leeds for a number of years. And then I left and became a police officer in the West Yorkshire Police in the UK. And on this occasion, when I would be about 32, about 32. Again, I know where I was and what was going on. And I'd just done 2 shifts. We used to finish a shift at 10 o'clock at night. You probably get home about 11, and then you'd start again at 6 o'clock in the morning. So you had about 5 or 6 hours sleep between those 2 shifts. And I was always extremely tired when I came home the following day after 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. And I always used to go to bed for 2 or 3 hours before my wife came home from her work at 5:30. So on this occasion, I'd gone to bed. I was tired. I was just about to fall asleep. And a shadow person, and I've been used to seeing shadow people as a child, and they'd hide behind the sofa, or you'd see them out of the corner of your eye, very mischievous. And so I'm used to seeing them. But this one came in through the door, which was closed, straight through the door, but looked at me directly in my eye, which they don't do. And then he beckoned me like this. And I said, go away. I said, I'm tired. I'm not interested. Come back later. And so he walked out the door and disappeared. I thought that was the end of that. A couple of minutes later, he came back and he looked directly at me and he beckoned me again like this. So I said, look, I'm tired. Come back later when I'm not so tired. So he walked off again through the door. And then he came back a third time. I thought, boy, you're persistent. You must want something to show me something. So I got up. I got up reluctantly. He walked through the door that was closed. I opened the door, walked through it, and on the landing, because it was a 2-story home, on the landing there was a column of light, a beam of light, and that I would describe it. If you ever watched Star Trek, when they beam people down to the planet, it was just like that. And I thought, well, you've gone to all this trouble to get me to see this light, I'm going to step in it and see what it is. So I stepped into it.
How'd that work?
I immediately felt a feeling of euphoria, just total euphoria. And then this voice spoke to me and said, I am your father, you are your father's son. That was it. The beam of light lasted a little bit longer, and then it disappeared sequentially from the ceiling and from the floor, and entered and disappeared within the stomach area, and then it just disappeared. Mm-hmm. So totally euphoric still, wide awake. No way was I going to sleep now. So I got up, I got dressed, I took my dogs out for a walk. My wife came home. I said, do you fancy going out for a meal tonight? She says, what's the matter with you? So I told her about the incident. I said, I'm just full of energy. Come on, let's go out.
Yeah.
So we went out for an evening meal. But I didn't know at the time, I thought it was my deceased father communicating. And it wasn't. It was actually Ra, the lead counsel of that Council of Eight. And I say he's Anunnaki. And I've contacted him many times since then. That was really the first time after when I was 14 that he contacted me personally and directly with me. So amazing, really. So, but then there was a bit of a gap again, and then I'm just getting on with my life. And then I used traveling on the astral plane just for pleasure, or again going around to see if family and friends are in and things like that. And as I say, I used to think everybody used to do that, and I know that many that are, but at that time I thought it was just normal for everybody. But I understand now that it isn't. So, another interesting occurrence was I was actually traveling on the astral plane, and I met with Orton D in many different aspects and modalities of contact. And on this occasion, I was actually traveling outside of my physical body on the astral plane, just purely for pleasure, because it's nice to leave the encumbrance of the physical and just fly around the astral plane. Yeah. And on this occasion, Orton D, that's the tool that materialized in the bathroom, came alongside me in a craft, and they invited me on the craft. Mm-hmm. So as I went through the skin of the craft, I could feel that it was conscious. The actual craft was conscious energy. As I went into the craft, Orton D were there, and they were just pure conscious energy, that round conscious energy ball, slightly vibrating, orangey yellow in color, and they were communicating telepathically. On this occasion, I said that I described how I saw them, and I said, how do you see me? And they said, Kevin, we see you in exactly the same way. So they were seeing, so the three, so I said to them, let me see if I understand this then. There were three of us here as pure conscious energy traveling on the astral plane in a conscious craft. Said, yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
So, and I used to meet with them on a regular basis like that. And again, just normal for me. I realize as I'm going through this more and more now, I realize these are not the normal things that we tend to do. But I know on one occasion, they invited me onto the craft, and they asked me to convey a message to somebody. And I agreed at the time. I said, yes, I would convey the message. And I came off the craft, and then I thought, oh, well, they'll want to know who the message is from. And because I know them, obviously, as Orton D. So I went back onto the craft. I said, who shall I say the message is from? They said, tell him it's from the light being. Now, I hadn't heard that term before, because I know that they're from Andromeda. They are fifth dimensional, and they are Arcturian. So calling themselves light beings was new to me. So I left the craft, I went back home, I went back into my body, and I woke up and I wrote the message down so I would remember it. I went back into bed. The following morning, I got up, I looked at the message, contact this person and give him that message. And I thought, I'm not doing that.
Oh,
he'll
yes,
think,
you are.
he'll think I'm a nutter. Anyway, so I screwed it up and threw it in the trash and said, I'm not doing that. End of story as far as I was concerned. The following night, I go to bed. Autumn D enter in a dream. And they say, Kevin, it's very important you convey this message. If you don't, this person may come to some harm. So, but that was in the dream. I woke up in the morning, I remembered the dream. So now I had a dilemma. A man who I didn't know, I've got to contact him, give him a message from two light beings who were traveling on a conscious craft with me. And I've got this message, and they call themselves light beings. So I thought, well, I've got a dilemma here now. What am I going to do? I'm actually worried about it. And I've got about 5 days to convey this message before the date. And I think, well, if I get in touch with him and I give him the message and he thinks I'm a nutter, I can deal with that. I don't know him. I'll probably never see him again. But if I don't give him the message and he came to some harm on that day, I would never forgive myself. Yes. So then I thought, oh, right. Okay, I'll convey the message for that moral reason. And so then I thought, well, how do I contact him? I don't know him. And he's quite a well-known person. So I thought, I'll have a look on YouTube. And very often I find that my guides will point me in a direction. So I went on YouTube, I put his name in, and the first video that came up was him at the top on the right-hand side with a list of other videos. Yeah. And sat next to this guy, who the message was for, was a guy that I know called, I did know this guy, or know of him, called Gary Heseltine. He was a police officer in the area where I was, although I didn't know him. So that was the connection. So I managed to find Gary Heseltine's, he has a website, he has a magazine, he talks about UFOs. I think his magazine is the Truth magazine, I think they call it. In fact, I have an article published in his magazine now at one point. Yes. And so I thought, right, I'll phone him, you know, and I'll give him the message. And I'll tell him just as it is, just as it happened. And Gary was non-judgmental. He conveyed the message to the individual. And within an hour, he received an email reply and thanking me for the information and said he would take it into consideration. And then they also included a photograph of a light being that he had taken while he was out in the field. So I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. He didn't think I was a nutter. And I learned something by it as well, by the new term of light beings. I've heard of it quite a few times now. So it was a learning curve for me. And that's what they tend to do. And I did ask them later, I said, would he really have come to some harm if I hadn't given him that information? And they didn't answer the question directly. What they said was, Kevin, we wanted to see if you would convey messages from us. And that was the test, really. So that's it. Yeah, just fascinating, really, the interaction between us. And what they tend to do is they'll give me an experience. Rather than sit me down in the classroom and teaching me, they'll give me an experience. And then from that experience, I'll learn. And then from that, they'll give me another experience. And we keep going up that conscious scale, as it were, until, you know, I have telepathic communication with all 8 as and when I want, because I understand it. And I've learned how to do it, you know. So, and I'm sure we all have these abilities, and we can all learn how to do them. But we're not taught any of these. All this information is kept hidden from us, I'm sure for a reason, because we are much more than just the physical. We are the spiritual side as well, and we have that conscious energy. Some people call it the soul, or whatever label you want to put on it. But when you're able to use both your physical and your spiritual, it enhances your life in relation to, it makes life a lot easier. It makes life happier, and you have an understanding, and you have a connection to the animal world, the insects, the plants, the trees, and that in itself. I have an old chair under a sycamore tree. It's a big old sycamore tree, and I'll sit under there with my two dogs and just watch, listen, and the life that is going on around in that tree, in the ground.
yeah.
It's tremendous. But without stopping and looking and appreciating it, it's going past you and you're missing all the beautiful things in life, all the other life that you're sharing your life with. And then and it goes right up to the higher realms of consciousness as well, in relation
True.
to speaking with your deceased family and friends. Just amazing, really amazing.
Oh, it is.
Phil,
It is truly amazing, and you're so right. And I'm just amazed at your story, and it just shows how it puts to rest a lot of things for a lot of people, because it is the way of learning how to do this, because they can't overload you all at one time.
No.
So it's a continual thing through this period, and it's always, if you're attuned to it and listening and aware of it, then you learn and you get to see all this because you're actually doing it. It's like when you first astral project and you first go out of your body for the first time. You're walking around, you're moving and you are physically walking, and then later you learn that, oh, by the way, hey, I can fly. And then it's just like going, oh, cool, look at this, I can do this and that, and you get to go places and you get to go other things. And when I was younger, I did the same thing that you would do. I would go sit at people's houses, or if I needed to get a hold of somebody, we had a phone at the house. And I had a younger sister and talked a lot on the telephone, and I would want to talk to people, or I need to get a hold of somebody. So I would astral project to their home, and I would leave a message to them, and I would say, or they might be on the phone, I couldn't get to them, and I want to talk to them, and I'd say, call me. I need you to call me. And then they would, it wouldn't be just, I'd go back home and I'd get back to the body. And the next thing I know, I get a phone call and they go, man, I got the strangest thing to call you. I don't know why I got to call you.
Well, we all have that, don't we?
Yes,
We all have that, but we don't realize it's a tool. We think it's a coincidence. I mean, how many times with my brother, I think, oh, I'll call Mike, and the phone rings and it's Mike. Why? Yes. I put it out there. He gets the message. In fact, I've got a great story. I mean, you know Mike, Barry, but Bill and Tonya don't know him. But my brother's I've deviated here, but because we've touched on consciousness.
Wait a minute. Your brother's a deviant?
Yeah, you know him quite well then. Yeah, he's a deviant. Yeah. I was talking to him one day, and he's now retired. He's a retired aircraft engineer, and he moved down. He lived in the UK, and he moved down to Spain, and he overlooks the Mediterranean. And he'd been in this apartment for about a year. And he said to me one day, oh, Kevin, he said, you should see the beautiful butterflies here. I said, well, why don't you ask them to land on your hand so you can have a better look at them? And being an aircraft engineer, he's a nuts and bolts man. And he said, oh, they won't do that. I said, well, why don't you try it? So he went outside, and he's got his camera on, so I'm watching him, talking to him. And his wife was there as well. She witnessed it. I said, right, well, hold your hand out. I like this, like that, whatever. And ask the next butterfly that comes along to land on your hand. So this big, beautiful butterfly, I said, you've got to give it a reason. Ask it, you want it to land on your hand because you want to see the beautiful colours in its wings. So I said, all you have to do is think it. I said, you can say it out loud if you want, but if you just think it. And then this butterfly came past. It went straight past him, out of sight, turned round, came back, and landed on his fingers. Well, he was amazed, absolutely amazed. So I said, right, what you need to do now, I said, you need to ask it to go away, and you'd like to meet one of its friends. So I said, think that's, put the message forward, you'd like to meet one of his friends. So the butterfly takes off. Bearing in mind he'd been there a year, and he's never had a butterfly land on him. The butterfly took off, it went out of sight, disappeared, turned around, came back with a friend, didn't it? The same one landed on his fingers. The second one landed on his forehead. And I've got photographs of this. And then another one came and landed on his book. And then on that day, he had 12 butterflies land on him when he sat out on the balcony.
Yeah.
That's the level of connection of consciousness that we can use if we understand it. But my brother's a quick learner. He's obviously intelligent and a deviant. Because what he did next, he'd got some ants that came onto his countertop where he prepares his food. And these ants came out of the electrical outlet and started walking along his top. And what he normally does, he gets a spray out and kills them, which most of us do. Mm-hmm. This time, he thought, if you don't go back into that outlet, I'm going to kill you with this spray because I prepare my food on that and I don't like you walking on there. If there was 8 there, 7 turned around immediately and marched straight back into the outlet. One didn't. I don't know whether he killed the one that didn't go or he gave it a bit of a push. I don't know. So now he's got 2 occasions where he's used consciousness as a communication. Yeah. But he now has a 3rd one. I think he's a glutton for punishment, is my brother. And he's just rescued a German Shepherd dog. I think he's about 4 or 5 years old. Beautiful dog called Atlas. And they're getting to know one another. And it's enhanced his life no end having this dog. And what he says to the dog is, "Oh, do you want a biscuit?" And the dog's learnt that he runs into the kitchen and scratches on the kitchen door. He kicks a biscuit. He opens up the door and he gives it a biscuit. So what does my brother do this time? I'm going to trick that dog now. I'm going to think, do you want a biscuit? And the dog's pretending to be asleep. So he thinks to himself, you want a biscuit? And the dog jumps up, runs into the kitchen, and scratches the door. So he's now got 3. So this engineer has now got 3 of his own examples of communication through thought and consciousness. But it's opened up his world. And it's made him happier, and more appreciative of the life that is around him. And now the butterflies, he'll be in his house, and the butterflies are coming up to the window like this. They're coming out to play, they're flying by the window and things. It's just amazing, really. So I'm sorry I digressed there, but
that's a perfect example for everyone to understand and to try, because that is part of it. That's such a small part to make sure that you are aware that we are a part of everything around here, that everything has its place and it does go with it. And we are ancient, if you will. Death is a physical thing here in the 3rd dimension, but basically what happens is that there is no death, because you continue on in a conscious form.
Exactly. Yes. The beings that I'm in contact with, Art and D, they tell me that they are Arcturian. I think I've mentioned that, from the 5th dimension. So it's just a higher vibrational frequency. But they say I'm part of their extended family. Just my physical is at a lower vibrational frequency. True. So we have to understand that life. I always equate it to. I planted some pine trees in the far bottom of my rear paddock. I've got 5 acres, and I wanted some pine trees for some reason. I bought 3, and I put the first one in, put the second one in. When I went to put the 3rd one in, it had an ant's nest in the root ball. Well, I planted it anyway, and the ant's nest grew and grew, and it's still there now. 5 years later, it's quite a healthy ant's nest. But they don't know. They don't know that I'm here. They haven't got a clue. Unless I run over them with my lawnmower, or I go and stand down there and stomp on the top. They'll probably think it's thunder and lightning or something. But their level of consciousness, they don't. Well, I don't think that they know I'm up here because I'm too far away from them. If I go down there, they're a bit aggressive. I think they're a bit like humans. They they
Yeah.
bite me all the time if I would go down there. But
Here comes this guy that runs that lawnmower over us.
but they look after their own young. They feed them. They breed. They have a colony. Everybody has a job to do within that colony. It's part of life within our universe, as it were. But I think it's a bit like us. We're not aware that the higher conscious beings are there unless you're taught it, or you teach yourself and open, or your parents that already know this information and pass it down to you, because we're not taught these things in schools or in our educational facilities. I think it's beginning to happen now, but certainly it hasn't over the many decades. But again, I think that's probably on purpose to keep us dumbed down to who we really are, I think.
Right. You know, I always look at it from the side of the point that most people aren't aware of this belief, and they have been, if you will, dumbed down by their own understanding of what they've been taught and who's been trying to do this and steer them away from this, because there's so much power involved in this true part of your being. You know, and at that point, if you're made to feel like you are superior and someone is more superior than you, then you think, oh, I can't do this kind of stuff. I can't do that. So they continue to feed you the crap and make you weaker. But we all have that ability, and it's all this part. And I think some of us are here to be teachers, if you will, just like you are. You're here to communicate. You're here to offer this and to put your story in place of how the universe actually deals with, and also talk about different dimensional things, because it is all part of that. And I am pleased as punch to have you on tonight and to be able to share this story with our wonderful chat room. And, you know, I think a lot of them are just kind of sitting back going, but, you know, that's great, because they have an opportunity to listen and to digest it and to learn. Tell me what's going on with the more about the councils. I know that they communicate to you on a basis about what's going on around here. Can you share any of that that would help people out to understand where we may be going and what is happening?
I can do. I can tell you some of the latest information that I have. They tell me that we are heading towards the golden years for humanity.
Yes.
And within that, what they're saying is we already have our own technologies that are hidden from us, from those that have it. They use it, but it's held from the majority of people.
Yes.
And once we have what they call the reveal, then they will share some of their technologies with us, and this will help us progress in the technology field, which will enhance our lifestyles, as it were. But we also have to grow spiritually and have an understanding of consciousness, which is where I think people like myself come into foreplay. And there are many doing it. I'm just one small piece in a very large jigsaw. There are many people. And I've met many now who have been doing this for 10, 20 years.
Yes.
The only reason that I'm speaking out was, in fact, I'll give you the exact, about 3 years ago. Although I've had this lifelong contact, it was only my wife and my brother knew about it. I didn't really speak about it. It was just part of me. It's who I was. And then one night I went to bed about 3 years ago. Middle of the night, I got up to go to the bathroom, came back from the bathroom and got into bed. Before I snuggled down, there was a bright light outside the bedroom window. It came in through the window and the whole bedroom lit up like a myriad of butterflies, but just pure white light. And then Orton D materialized at the bottom of the bed. And after pleasantries, I asked them what was the reason for their visit. And I said, Kevin, we would like you to talk about your lifelong experiences with us. And we'd like you to write about your lifelong experiences with us. And I said, well, I don't mind talking about it, but I'm not a writer. And they said, well, we will continue to guide you. we will continue to teach you, and we will give you some information to include in the book. And then they said, in fact, you will write 2 books, Kevin. And so I said, okay. They haven't asked me to do anything in all these years, so I agreed. And then the following morning, I started writing, and I wrote the first book, Spiritual Consciousness, a personal journey, which is really what we've just been talking about, my experiences.
Yes.
And then the second book I wrote with Melisa Kennedy and Edgar Yohe, and that's Tap into Universal Energy. So those are my 2 books now. So I've just got to keep talking about it. But what's interesting about in this Tap into Universal Energy one, I mentioned earlier about when I went onto the big mothercraft, and there was a small grey there who waved to me. Okay. Well, I've met him since, and his name is Tia. He's an engineer, and he's also a pilot, and he repairs and maintains the smaller craft for transporting people backwards and forwards. And I can't remember the exact date now. A couple of years ago, I got up in the morning about no exact time. It was 8:30, and I thought I'll see if I can communicate with the Council of 8. I wasn't able to, but I tuned into a small craft that was in the area, and Tia was flying the craft, and he was transporting 6 or 7 small greys from A to B. So I said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" He said, "Oh, well, we were flying nearby, and we wanted to come and see where you lived. We're off our flight path, so we can't stay off our designated flight path," he said. So we had some other words, and then he flew off. Obviously, after the communication, nothing unusual for me, just another telepathic communication. But instead of being with the Council of 8, it was with another grey, and I had other contact with others, and nothing unusual for me. I got up, I went to make my coffee. Sandy was already outside on the pool deck, having her cup of tea in the morning, and she said to me, "Oh, Kevin, you've missed the most beautiful rainbow this morning." I said, "Oh, did you get a photograph?" She says, "Yes, I got my iPad, I went out, and as I said, we have got 5 acres at the back, and the rainbow went from one fence line to the other, a total 180 degrees from fence to fence."
Yeah.
So as she's taking the photograph, she takes the first one, lowers it down, and a craft appears under the rainbow. So she lifts it up, takes a picture, drops it down again, and it's gone. Okay, so she's over the moon by this. She's got this photograph. But then we look at the time on the photograph, and it was 8:30 when I was speaking to Tia. So that was the craft that he was flying by in with the others who are in there.
Yes.
But they include Sandy now. They contact her in different ways, and that particular rainbow is in this particular book. It's a little blurred under the rainbow, but I've since learned that they use rainbows as portal. It's a light portal, and they use them as portals. So, but that particular story in that rainbow is in that particular book. So
yes, it's a fabulous book. I have that book, and I'm looking to have to get your other one. It is so great, and let me put it up for everyone. I'll let you talk about the books if you'd like to, and also I've got your website up here so that they can talk more to you or follow you a little bit. These books, Tap into Universal Energy, is available on Amazon. This is the one that you wrote with Melisa Kennedy, Edgar Yohe, and of course yourself. And great book, not a real hard read. It's a thin little red book, but a lot of great information in it, isn't it? It's just, you don't have to go through a whopper of a book to get the point out. And it is very true and very, very great. And then this is the first book that you wrote, is the Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey. Are you going to make another one of those?
Well, I'm currently writing a essay for a competition by Robert Bigelow, the aerospace company. He's having a competition to write about evidencing life after human physical death. So I'm writing that at the moment, and then when it's finished, if it comes in the top so many within the competition, then I think he will publish them. If not, then I will publish that particular essay, because it touches on what we've spoken about today, about communicating with our deceased family members, communicating with the extraterrestrials. And I think, it's got more information in there, and some more things that I don't really talk about normally, but I've put them in there, and it'll be new information for people in relation to connection from deceased families and friends, because there are many of us that miss our families and friends when they do pass. But if you realize that they're still there and you communicate with them, then it takes away that grief, because they're there. So I suppose really it's just an extension of consciousness. But because the title was Evidencing Life After Human Physical Death, but to go into that, you've got to talk about consciousness, and then to go into that, you've got to talk about the ETs, the different levels of consciousness. And I was given an equation for calculating the different dimensional frequencies, and that will be in the essay as well. So some interesting stuff coming out, and I think that's got to be in by August the 1st, and then they'll make a decision who wins by November the 1st, I think, and then I'll be in a position to, if I don't win anything, that's fine. It's just nice to be, you have to make an application to actually enter the competition. So I made the application, and I was surprised that they accepted it, but they did. So we'll wait and see. And then Orton D asked me, I wasn't going to enter. Orton D asked me one morning, Kevin, we'd like you to enter that competition.
Yeah.
Which is quite strange, because I went on the website and looked at it, and I thought, no, I'm a bit out with my depth there. I don't think that's, what they were asking for. So I said to Sandy, my wife, I was thinking about entering this competition. So I said, there's a website, go and have a look at it, see what you think. So she looked at the website, and says, Kevin, she says, I think you're out of your depth there. So anyway, I thought, well, they've asked me to enter, so I'll submit the application. And if it's accepted, fine. If it's not, that's fine. Well, I submitted the application, and the following day said, yes, that's fine. You've got until August the 1st to submit your essay, up to 25,000 words. So I finished it now. In fact, just finalizing it today, some final editing. So that'll be my next thing, and then just continue talking about the things that happen. And I've spoken about the downloads that I keep getting from time to time. They're quite interesting.
Yes. And what we'd like to do, if possible, is, I want to have you back, and let's talk about these downloads. Let's talk about some of these things in the future. So possibly if I can give you next month, if we can set up a time and have you back in, and we'll do another session with you and talk about some of the things that are going on, and see how the competition's going and everything else. But as we talked about this competition on the Conspiracy Clan many a times, and I got a beer riding on it, that a piner that says, if you win, I'm going to come down there and drink one with you. So,
well, the prize money for this competition is absolutely astounding. Outrageous. Yes. It's I think the first prize is $500 million. Okay. The second prize is 300,000. The third prize is 150,000. And I was talking to my brother, and I said to him, this is quite funny. I said to him, I'll probably come fourth, knowing my luck. And then my brother said, well, you shouldn't put yourself down like that. Think that you're going to win. I said, oh, okay. But then the following day, Robert Bigelow came out and said that they've decided to have a runner-up, 10 runners-up. And the runners up will get 50,000 apiece. So if I come fourth now, I get 50,000. So I'll still be happy.
That's right. Exactly.
But I haven't done it for the money. That's not the issue really. It's about getting the information out there. I think at the end of the day.
That's the part about it is that, and they have you join it because it is there's a reason behind it. They are, and I don't know if you feel this way, but sometimes when you sit and write, they also help you write.
Yes,
because they are downloading that thing into your mind to continue you to feed that so that it comes to fruition. And the person who you are writing that or doing in your essay is one of the major players, or has been for years, in the space ordeal, whether most people like him or not, but he has been involved in it. So we are all looking forward to your expertise in this. And I think that more and more, that's what's going to have to happen. We're going to have to take it at times, and you have a hard job ahead to get us all there.
Okay, what I'd like to say as well, I've been invited to talk about what we're talking about today on the wishalliance.org. It's a new group that's been started by Sheila Seppi, and she's a walk-in, and the WISH stands for Walking Indigo Star Seeds and Hybrids. And she's asked me to give a talk on August the 5th. I think it's about 8 p.m. Eastern time. So I'll be covering all this again on that talk and more in relation to the ETs and things. So it's quite interesting that people are asking me to come on their shows and talk about it now. I mean, I've been on quite a few, as you know already, but it's still very interesting. And I do like being asked to share the information because there's so many people don't really know what's going on, I don't think.
That is correct, 100%. And it opens the door to others. Excuse me, my throat. Excuse me, my throat is suffering today for some reason. And I just can't get it lubed up enough. But as we look at this and as what it deals with, and as we look into connecting consciousness in the future and what it takes to move forward into this and where it all takes us, that is such an important part of us getting through the doorway that we are dealing with currently in the situation that is around us, and you're a big part of that. And I appreciate your efforts and everything that you do. And you are a very special individual, and you're very dear to my heart.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that coming from you, Barry. You know what it's like having a deviant brother. You just don't.
Yes, I know. Yes, knowing that deviant brother like I do. But hopefully we'll also be able to get back together again. And we are working on putting together the Conspiracy Clan again, where we can talk a little bit about the things that gets me kicked off of things. But we don't want to do that here because I'd like to continue to keep the Billy in a safe zone.
Like a plan,
yes, and into the far going on. But I would love to hear more about that new group. And if she would like, I'd love to have her on. And if you want to bring her on with you, I would love to have her come on and explain to her group, because the whole deal with consciousness as we are moving, we had Dave Spinks on last week, and through the paranormal and through everything else, we are all realizing that this is going to another place.
We need to take this up a level and take it to a round table.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it'd be a great idea. Great idea.
Yeah, that would be good. I missed who you said to invite on your show, Barry, because I lost the signal.
Well, well, we are so pleased, and Kevin, thank you again. I want to put up the books one more time for you, and again, it's tap into the energy, into universal energy, understanding the universal consciousness energy. And of course, the other book, Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey. And the website is kevinjbriggs.com. Go there. I think you'll be amazed at some of the things that Kevin is doing and what he has done in the past. Go to Amazon tonight. The Spiritual Consciousness first book. I was there today. Ordered one. $20. Great deal. You can't beat it, and it's going to help you out tremendously. And Kevin, I do appreciate it. You are a wonderful friend, a great author, and thank you for everything that you're doing for standing up and being able to talk about this consciousness. So
well, thank you, and I look forward to meeting you all again. And it's nice to meet Billy and Tonya. So thank you, and again, thank you for inviting me, because without people like you, I can't get the information out there. So you're an integral part of what's going on. So
well, I try to be, and I need to talk to you about some more stuff like that, and I'll probably give you a call and we'll talk about some of this. But we have to have a conversation also with your deviant brother too. So.
We'll have to send him a copy of this he can listen to. And I won't tell him that we've now got a new name for him, the Deviant.
Deviant one. All right, sir. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much.
Thank you,
Kevin.
Kevin.
See you all again.
We got to do it again very soon.
Very soon, my friend. Thank you. Folks, that was Kevin Briggs, and Kevin is just a super individual. And look, this is where it's going to. As we look around the world, what do you guys think about it?
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, if they would just stop, breathe, relax, they would find that they could tap into this. And it's just something that most people are conditioned not to believe in. And
yes, exactly.
I mean, think about it. How many times, like you said, you're thinking about somebody and what happens? Your phone rings. It's them calling you. Or
Right.
How many times have you answered somebody's question before their lips even moved and they just look at you funny?
And I've always felt like everybody can do certain things. It's just a matter of them tapping into it.
Yes. And remember that, folks. It's all, everybody has the ability. It's all part about being able to get in touch.
Just stop being told what you can and can't do.
If you think you can do it, you can do it.
That's right. Put effort forward, and you have the ability. Yep. Nothing is stoppable. You are unstoppable because it is all within you. That's the most important part that we can say to you. Don't look for anybody else. It's all within here. It's all within you. Each is different for everyone. And again, we thank you so much for tuning in. Chat room, it's been a pleasure. And thank you for all your support. It's we rely on that so much. And please go to the Facebook page, like us, go over to the YouTube and subscribe to us. And we're trying to do bigger and better things. And next week, we've got another barn burner in consciousness, because where are we going with that? We have the wonderful Serenity Jenny on, and she'll be here on air. And folks, if you haven't met Jenny or you don't know of Jenny,
they better stand back 10 feet.
Yeah. Exactly. So it'll be an awesome show. And Jenny is just a ball full of energy.
She is wonderful. Please tune in. Please tune in and be blown away with the things that she's gonna.
Yes,
she's gonna say
as we take this deeper into consciousness, as we move this forward. So, thank you all again. Many blessings to you all, and we look forward to seeing you next week here on Into the Far. Have a great night,
everyone.